All right. So in the Bible, there's a verse that goes, then you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So what comes before then is if you follow my verses, then you become, if you hold on to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And this is an important thing to have in mind, or at least this part, even if you leave the previous thing, what is the teaching and whatnot, if you leave that, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. And given the context of where we are as a society, it's becoming more and more difficult to find out what the truth is. You must have heard of the dead internet theory, where now AI is creating more content than humans put together. And yesterday, I saw someone posted on Instagram saying that Instagram as a platform is pushing AI content more. And I think few months back, YouTube was kind of penalizing this content. So while these big platforms where these kind of content goes is being decided as to how they can um, adapt adapt to this new reality where there's AI that's creating content on its own. And you must have heard of this thing called Molt Book, which again is a social media, Reddit kind of a social media that's created by this Molt bot, which is the new name for um, Claude bot. Then it became Claude, CLAWD bot, which created more, which became Molt bot, and Molt bot created Molt book, which is kind of like the Facebook for these guys, the AI agents, and there's some crazy stuff happening over there. But a few days ago, again, someone said, no, that is just generated by one person. So, it's very difficult to find out what's true anymore. And the only way for us as individuals is from a larger systemic standpoint, people who are in charge of seeing how they can adopt to this new reality of AI and humans working together on the internet, be it YouTube or the big platforms. But you and I as individuals, um, is that a way that we can really discern what is truth and what is not, or at least going towards this truth concept, right? And I used to have this mental model a long time back where um, any creation occurs as a thought in one person's head initially, and now you can use concepts like Neuralink, and the thoughts can be directly absorbed or detected as electromagnetic pulses. And you must have seen this video of a guy who is placing an order for pizza just by thinking, and it delivers, right? I mean, obviously, his credit card is connected and whatnot, whatnot. But the point is, your thought can be now detected through variations in electromagnetic pulses in your brain. So that's the product part. And this thought, essentially, how it's stored in the brain is like a graph, as in a network thought. So there's a node, and there is um, a line that connects to the other node. I don't want to get into the technical details of how graph as a data structure comes along, but generally think of it like uh, balls hanging, and then each of those things are loosely connected. So whenever I say, so can you think of the most fearful incident in your entire life? Now, the moment you hear it, it's going through your ear, and then it's getting processed through the neurochemical state of your body. It depends on what you ate and whatnot. So, and then all this is now rushing through your brain, and your brain is now doing a search of, oh, what is fear, and what are all the incidences that you have stored in your brain as memories. And there are memories that are absorbed, like you see a movie and then you could have seen a person getting scared on the movie, that is also a memory. And or somewhere in a dark alley, you're walking along and then some dog jumps up on you, and that could be a scary moment for you. That's your lived experience, right? So the brain doesn't really differentiate between lived experience and perceived experience, unless you want to be like true and discern, right? So these thoughts are there. And then now the instruction is go find for fear and a memory of that, right? So your brain is now sorting through everything. So it's not going linearly, it's like going at the same time. Think of it like binary search in a classical computing standpoint, but if you're aware of quantum computing, then it's probably doing Grover's search. It doesn't matter, but the point is it's trying to figure out a particular moment in your memory, in your brain, and then it's playing it back to you, and then you're like, oh, yeah, that is the most fearful um, memory or the thought, right? And if I ask you to articulate it, so that's the network digital thought, right? Like if you have now listed down that, let's say on something like Rome Research, which is this kind of a tool, and let me see if I can graph here, right? So a graph is a good network representation of how these thoughts are stored in your brain, right? And yeah, so something like this, right? So whenever I've used the term God and the date that's attached to that, this is a structure that Rome is following. Some specific days. Now I can go back and see what I would have talked about it on that particular day, right? So there are like 220 linked references. So anyway, this is an entire graph of just the word God in my, let's say, second brain. And if I look at the overall graph overview, it's nuts, right? Like every dot that you see here is a thought or a word. And this is all in English language, by the way, right? But my mother tongue is Tamil. So there is a jump that's happening from Tamil to English itself, but I'm not gonna go deeper into all those things. But as you can see, this is God. But we also, the God here is Growth on Demand as well, which was a brand that we used to have, not the spiritual or religious God connotation over here. Anyway, the point is that is network digital thought, right? Like, so whatever is in my head, now it's stored in a digital networked way. And if you have that brain built up, then you can use AI to then create content around it, and you can create a digital clone of yourself and whatnot. For all you know, the person who is talking right now could be the digital clone of myself, but how will you verify? We'll come to that later. But then the point is the network digital thought can be put into a structured text. So what I'm doing now is essentially moving into a video format. But if you are on LinkedIn and if you're connected with me on the Internet of Value newsletter, a few days ago, I posted about this, which is math is the path of least resistance to the truth. And what I'm trying to do now is go one step beyond that by using all the coding tools that are available to us and making it a little more interactive. And I'm also thinking through this while this is being shot, because I'm thinking if AI is able to create very structured content, then what would make a person real is these kind of conversations where I'm thinking through something. And hopefully, if there are other deep thinkers like this and want to be part of the Internet of Value or any of the communities that you're building, I'm hoping it'll attract that kind of people. But it's essentially for myself, like I'm thinking through this, right? So the text is this what I'm talking here, right? So it's a very structured form of why I'm saying math is the path of least resistance, like what's the physics behind it, why we have to abstract out words into variables and whatnot, right? So the thought that occurred, and the thought is captured in a tool like Roam Research or a note-taking tool in a graph format, right? Or Obsidian or Tana, whatever you're using, right? And from there, you can then generate all these different forms of content, right? Like the text, what I showed on LinkedIn is a structured text format. And that can also be on Medium, Substack, whatever it is, right? Now, if I use something like 11 Labs to clone my voice, and then the text can become audio instantly. And what I'm doing now is also audio, right? And mind you, like I said, like English is not my natural language, so I have a limited vocabulary when it comes to articulating what I'm really thinking through. And at least in a text format, it's still okay. But when it comes to like real conversations like this, then I'm like, searching for words. So what is the right next word? And then like I'm stitching it together and I'm talking, right? And um, so let's say you have this whole thing. Let's see, right? We are thinking through this. Um, why it's so hard to copy. God damn it. Really? Oh, all right. Hey, I wrote this will be back and this be condensed into a graphic. Yes, now we can really see the power of all the tools that are available to us. So let's say I go to this new tool called Notebook LM. So I can call it copy text. So the same text I'm pasting into another tool. It's called Notebook LM. Let's call it truth speaking. Okay. Now we use the studio. Let's say use, yeah. Okay. Now, so what ChatGPT did is still talking to me, right? So while this is happening, let me go back. So now what we are trying to do is capture this text and in the format of a single image, right? And that image then can be used to propagate the same idea itself. And then if you have like two, three, so even sure, if we have something called the slide deck, right? So let's see, blah, blah. Okay. So let me use a presenter slide. Okay, cool. So now, not just an infographic, you can also create a bunch of slides related to the concept that you're talking about. Then you can use some um, conversion which can make these images loop, then it becomes a GIF, right? So it's moving images without audio. And the moment you add audio to it, then it can become moving images with audio. So the interesting thing is you can create all those things right now with like nothing. I mean, I'm not giving any specific um, idea here, right? So, but I prefer debates. So you see, what we have done is the thought, which was that math is the path of least resistance to the truth is now being converted into an infographic, no, video overview, an audio overview, and a slide deck. Okay. And if you're learning some, let's say the mind map also, right? And if you're learning it, then you can also use it like a flashcard. So you can like get through these concepts really quick. Okay. So coming back, while this is all getting generated, let's see. So we have created all this, right? So any creation which occurred as a thought, now it has become all these different formats of consumption. And on the y-axis, I put bullshit or perceptions or biases because every time we move away from the source of creation, we're adding more and more layers of perceptions on top of it, right? So from a consumption standpoint, it could be easy, right? For example, the video is something that you would watch. And let's say the video is 1 minute long, which is a short video, and it's about truth seeking. So you'll be like, oh yeah, let me go through this, right? Very few people will watch this long form video. And amongst the very few people who are watching the long form video, very few will actually sit through and complete this as well, right? So because when you start, there's a certain type of bias that kicks in. It's like, oh, is it worth my time? And then the first 3 second rule, when the 3 seconds, if I'm not able to hook you, then you're gone, right? Like these are ideally not my target audience at this point in time. So that's okay, right? I'm not optimizing for short form, book-based, engagement-based content. This is more about thinking through, and we are probably creating a new type of content itself. So the point is, as we move away from the core thought, we're adding more and more layers of biases in that, right? The moment I add a word to it, then and it's in English, right? And let's say my thought was in Tamil, and there's a loss in terms of conversion based on my vocabulary set, both in the native language and in my and in the language in which I'm trying to convey this thought. So everywhere there's like new layers of biases or perceptions that are being added, right? So for example, let's see narratives versus equations comparison. Right. So narratives are optimized for persuasion, not accuracy, right? So because as I keep adding more and more things to it, I really like one thing that we have written here. Truth is what survives constraint. Again, a map that, yeah, this. See, you lose drama, you lose ambiguity, you lose the ability to win by charisma. Because the moment I remove all these words that I'm talking, the moment I remove the video and this person from whom these words are coming from, and the way I'm articulating, is there a way that I can hook people and whatnot? This is where public speaking comes in and whatnot, right? But charisma comes in, and let's say if I've sold the Internet of Value book for 126 million, then suddenly your perception of me will change. It'll be the same person and it's the same vocabulary set that I have, and probably I'll be talking about the same thing. But your perception of where this is coming from will completely change, right? Because there is a high signal, which is money raised or something sold and whatnot, right? That's why uh, so much attention and thought goes into what Elon Musk is saying or Trump is saying and whatnot, right? So there is power and there's money. All those things are altering the way that we perceive others' words that are coming out, right? But the moment you're able to abstract out that, like you remove the words and you put it into a variable format, then it suddenly collapses. And it collapses to the bare minimum, right? So that's what we mean by you lose the ability to win by charisma when you are bringing it down to a variable level. But I have to take a step back, which is, so this was my initial thought. Then it went one step higher from these moving images, which is website or a product, right? So essentially, a product is also in the same journey, right? Someone would have had a problem they would have encountered. So let's take Uber as an example. Travis Kalanick standing somewhere and he's like, man, why can't I get a car without this hassle of going on the street, like whistling or like putting my hands out, and then I have to fight with other people to get in and whatnot, right? And then I'm still not sure what's the rate, at least in India, that was the case, right? The standardization, though it was available in theory, it wasn't really practiced. So it's like he's getting angry, and the thought is, oh, can I use an app where I can like now make all these people become part of this network, and anyone can um, call or hail for a Uber or a car, which will have standardized pricing. We will rate them and whatnot, right? So that went into a format of him thinking through it, putting it in the format of images, which is a slide deck, getting investor money and building a product, right? But it still originated as a fucking thought. And then now what people are talking about it, your product is not good enough because AI can build products so easily. So I will show you. So this is something that I'm building right now, and we will go into the depth of it in a bit. But I'm saying it has become that easy. I can just talk to it in English and show all these things for people. So um, if software development is becoming that easy, then you have to offer something more. What is that more? Could be, are you offering a solution? Are you offering a service? So that's where SaaS, which is software as a service, is now being questioned, or industry is assuming that it will be replaced by service as a software. Okay. So that was my thought process a few years ago. And then this is the next level of that, which is, where does math fit into all these things, right? Even a solution or a service can be broken down into a mathematical format. So then my question was, sorry, there's one mid layer over here, which is a protocol. A protocol, I think we're going the nice way, which was from software as a service to service as a software. And then the next layer would be, if you have to really offer service in the scalability and modularity that software kind of offers, maybe the pricing can't get to the level of a SaaS, but yeah, we'll see how the industry evolves. But the point is, if you have to get there, then you have to have clear protocols in terms of what is the service that you're offering, how is that service is being offered. So you're having a bunch of rule set. That's what a protocol is, right? So from service, we have now moved into a protocol layer level. The moment you move into a protocol layer level, then you have words, and the words has certain rules. So words could be that if you're, let's take a growth agency as an example, and you say, I have to offer AI transformation through audit align augment as service delivery model. Okay. And then the question, so it becomes, see, AI transformation is a function of audit, align, augment. And then you can break down each of those things. Then you'll say, what is audit? Audit is a function of people, process, and tools. And then it'll be like, okay, what does the people audit entail? Oh, it entails a couple of online forms, one face-to-face interview. And then I put all that into an AI validator, so to speak, which churns out a people 360-degree view of person and the skill set. So you as a CEO would know where does your people stand, and that gives a people audit. The same thing you can do for process and tools as well. But you see where I'm going with it, which is a service as a software. If it has to be really thought through, then you're really thinking in terms of protocols, which is nothing but words and the association between those words, right? At some point, you'll have decision makings, you'll have quantifiable metrics and whatnot to let the protocol evolve in a way that decision making is kind of built into the protocol itself. So that would be the next layer. But you're still working with words, right? So when I say AI transformation, it's audit, align, and augment. These are all words. But if you're able to abstract out even more, then it becomes math, right? So for AI transformation, you can have a variable, AIT equals F of AAA, audit, align, augment. So then you're removing the English word association with that, right? Because now instead of AAA, I can use Tamil and I can say right? So that's where like E equals mc square is way more powerful than saying energy is mass times speed of light square, right? Because E equals mc square is the same in every language, whereas um, the moment you use energy and mass and everything, there could be connotation or the baggage that comes with language that will be affecting the perceiver's psyche and the state or the observer's state. Okay, so you see from solution service to protocols being abstracted out as math, which is what I was trying to explain over here. Um, because then you can remove all the biases. You can remove, this person who is talking, the words that's being talked about and everything, and you're really looking at it at the bare minimum level. But then the question that I had for a longest time was, so where would that math fit in? Is it like above, like right here? Um, and then at some point it kind of clicked, which is, why do I have to like look at it as a linear flow? Why can't it be a wave function between two extremes? And so then it kind of becomes like math could be the link between this highest form, which is a protocol, and the thought layer. So it connects back because then it feeds back, right? I think ideally that's how everything works. So two extremes and the wave, I mean, in a two dimension, you will look at it like a sinusoidal or cosine wave. But in reality, it's like going around like this. It's going around, going around, going around, going around. And then eventually one extreme is the link to the other one itself. Um, yeah. So, okay. So this is where I stand, right? Then a few days ago, no, yesterday, I was having this thought about what is this epistemology, etymology, ontology that people talk about, and I wanted to see how that brings another layer of perspective onto this current model that we are looking at it from a storytelling standpoint. So then I started, talking to it. Then we thought of creating a game that went more in the direction of what's like a tutorial kind of a thing, um, which I wasn't happy with. But where we are right now is kind of this, which is like a matrix, like a 2 by 2 matrix. So here we are exploring something called the term value itself, right? So if you have to look at the term value from a truth-seeking standpoint, how can you look at it? You can look at it as a religious and ontological perspective. In a religious world, value is treated as real beyond objects, meaning duty, soul, sin, grace, purpose. So Ravi shifts attention to religious, the ontology lens changes what value even means. Then you go one level to the right, you get political and ontology. In political, value is treated as collective reality, legitimacy, authority, public good, enemies, and citizens, right? Uh, so that's the horizontal axis. But if you look at the y-axis, then it changes from ontology, we go into pragmatics. So we had like 40 such lenses to look at one particular concept itself. Okay. Um, Ideally, I should be able to click here and whatnot. So the logic here is one is a systems lens, which is social, technological, environmental, economic, political, legal, mathematical. So this is a systems lens of looking at a particular thing. And then this whole ontology, epistemology, etymology, axiology, and even aesthetics. I don't know what to call them. So these are system lenses. Sorry. Those could be philosophical lenses, probably. I'm not sure. But anyway, then I thought there could be a better way. Wait a second. So let's see what this has turned up. Okay. The truth seeking. So we saw the infographic. So when we looked at math to filter vibes, yeah, nice. All right. See, words give narratives, math gives modeling. Yeah, so this was pretty good. um, let's see how it came as a mental model. Perfect, perfect. Whoa, this is great, right? Uh, Distraction, brilliant. Okay. Oh, final thesis, let's see, right? Truth is what survives constraint. Math is the path of least resistance. Okay, perfect. Um, but again, this is also coming from the perspective then that we are expecting everyone to have mathematical thinking. I'm not talking about, like the real hard problems of like NP hard or NP complete. I'm not talking about that level of math problems. I'm purely looking at it from an applied mathematical standpoint, right? Like, can we remove words and bring them to the level of simple variables and the relationship between the variables? It could be as simple as plus and minus and ideally plus and multiplication. Then everything kind of stems from there, right? Um, Okay, so let's see equations of truth. So you saw how one image was created. Now this is the second image. Oh, beautiful, right? Uh, Math is compression, algorithm for reality, outcome is a function of inputs and constraints. Whoa, that's it. Crazy. So hard work always wins. So result is skill and rep into feedback quality minus friction. Killing motivational speech. Any motivational speech will like kind of can be brought down to this level is what I was trying to say there. Math doesn't give comfort, it gives leverage. If the model says friction is structural, you stop blaming your personality. Right. It's just poetry in a lab coat. Look how beautiful like these things are. Crazy, right? I'm not saying one or the other. Ideally, we should have everything. That's what we are now trying to create. Um, all right. So before I go into the audio and video part, let's see where we stand, right? So you saw where this is the systems lenses and the truth lenses, so to speak. So I want to go from there to this one. So what I basically said was this matrix doesn't give a proper way of looking at it. I thought a better way to look at this whole thing is like the 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 object of truth seeking. Let's say in this case, we are looking at the term value itself. The object of truth seeking is somewhere suspended in a dark room, and the lenses are nothing but the perspective lights that are being thrown on this particular object of truth seeking. Um, sorry, subject of truth seeking, right? Like we are trying, this is the subject, and truth seeking is the function, and the bulbs that are being turned on are like the different lenses that we can look at it from. So then we will know that, oh, everything that we are looking at in the real world doesn't have just one perspective. So it really depends on me to improve my perspectives about that particular thing to become better at this truth-seeking behavior. No one else is going to do it for us, right? Like you can either sit around and wait for YouTube and Instagram to tell you what is AI and what is not. There'll always be people kind of hacking into that system. So the best way is for us to kind of take it on ourselves and say, oh, can I move into more perspectives around this truth seeking? Okay. All right. So now from, let's see, we're going to do this real time. Okay. So we are going to do this with me. So we had these things, right? So there is a 2.5D way of looking at XY axis, right? Huh. See, I'm not able to control properly. So anyway, so I wanted to move away from this whole matrix kind of thing. And then, right, see, one central concept value, single 3D, suspended truth lenses and system perspective represent light sources. Turning on a light reveals one perspective of the same object. Turning on multiple reveals combined perspective. The object never changes, only illumination does. Beautiful. So then all this rest of the things are in technical terms. Even I don't understand. Let's see what's gonna happen. Okay, so while this is working, let's go back to this. Dismantling vibe-based truth with the equation. So this is a debate.
Welcome to the debate. So today we are going to try and dismantle the what you might call the architecture of insight. We live in an era that, I can only describe as being dominated by vibe-based truth. You scroll through your feed, you see a viral clip, a founder speaks with this absolute conviction, and suddenly millions of people just accept that emotional resonance as factual reality. We've stopped verifying and we've just started nodding along.
And that distinction is exactly where our source material today, it drives a wedge. We're looking at a text called Equations of Truth, Modeling Reality Beyond Narrative. And it proposes a pretty stark and frankly, a somewhat unsettling idea that while human beings are, addicted to storytelling to cope with existence, the universe itself, it operates on computation and constraints.
It's a profound, almost violent distinction, really. And so the central question we're tackling is this: is mathematical modeling the superior and maybe even the only path to objective truth? Or is the source's dismissal of narrative as just a lossy codec, to use the author's term, is that a dangerous oversimplification of human experience? I'm taking the stance that the text is correct. Mathematical modeling is really the only reliable filter we have because it forces specificity, it removes tribal emotion, and it operates on the same logic as nature.
And that's where I have to urge some caution, because while I agree that math offers tremendous leverage, treating narrative as nothing more than a coping mechanism ignores the reality of the user. I'm arguing that this binary separation of, messy narrative and pure math is flawed. Choosing which variables to even put into an equation is inherently subjective. Truth, in a human context, it requires meaning, not just calculation. If you strip away the story, you might find the structure, sure, but you lose the intent.
Well, let's begin with the problem of language itself. The source material makes a really compelling opening argument that I think is pretty difficult to refute. It states that words don't just describe reality. They, quote, recruit emotions. Think about it. When we use words, we trigger identity, tribal loyalty. The text calls words a lossy codec.
And that's a term that's borrowed from digital media compression, isn't it? Like an MP3 file or a JPEG.
Exactly. Yeah, that's precisely the idea. Think of a JPEG image. To make the file size smaller, the computer throws away data, pixels, that it thinks the human eye won't miss. It sort of approximates the color. Language does the same thing. It throws away the nuance of reality to make an idea fit into a social context. We compress the truth to make it persuasive. We say he's a bad person instead of describing the complex set of biochemical and environmental pressures that led to one specific action. We compress to convince.
I understand the metaphor, and it is clever, but I think it frames the issue a little uncharitably. Yes, language compresses information, but that compression is what makes cooperation possible in the first place. If I had to describe every single atomic interaction of a situation, we'd never get anything done. We need the lossy nature of words to function. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
We need it to function socially, I'll grant you that. But the text argues that this social optimization is exactly where truth gets lost. If you want truth in the boring, useful sense, you have to do what nature does. And nature, it doesn't argue. Nature computes. In physics, the world isn't negotiated into existence by the best storyteller. It doesn't care who has the most followers. Classical mechanics gives us F equals ma. Force causes acceleration scaled by mass. As the text says, no personality required. The universe doesn't care if you feel like the rock shouldn't fall.
I grant you that. You can't argue with gravity. But we aren't just rocks falling down a hill. We are, as the text admits, walking biology with a storytelling addiction. And the source argues that truth is what survives constraint. That's a beautiful definition for physics, but when you apply it to human decision-making, it feels sterile. We use words to make our coping sound intellectual. So if we strip away the narrative entirely, are we actually finding truth, or are we just creating a simulation that ignores the biologic reality of the people living in it?
We're finding the structure underneath the drama. The thesis here is that we have to move from words that compress reality for humans to math that compresses reality for reality. Just as F equals ma requires no personality, truth requires stripping away the narrative to see the structural rules. The text uses this analogy of a debate versus physics. You can argue in a room, but, quote, you cannot argue with the equations and expect the universe to nod politely. We need that level of rigor.
And that rigor is seductive, I admit it. But let me come at this from a different angle. The source itself admits that math can be poetry in a lab coat if it can't be audited. This suggests that math isn't inherently truthful. It's just another language that can be used to lie. In fact, it might be more dangerous because it carries this veneer of objectivity. My concern is that the text claims math is less corruptible. But if we just turn words into variables, if we take a complex human situation and reduce it to X and Y without understanding the context, we risk optimizing for the wrong thing.
I see why you'd think that, but let's look at the alternative. The danger you're describing, optimizing the wrong objective, is actually far more prevalent in language than in math. The source argues that modeling forces specificity in a way that language simply cannot. Language lets you hide in the blur. Math forces you to focus.
Okay, give me a concrete example of this forced specificity. Because in my experience, people often use math to obscure things, not to clarify them.
Take the example from the text about success. We hear these vague claims all the time. Hard work always wins, or community is the answer. They're narratives. They feel good. They get likes. But what do they actually mean? The text proposes translating these into a model. So consider this formula. Results equals skill times reps times feedback quality, friction.
It's a clean formula, I'll give you that. But life isn't clean.
It is more than clean. It is ruthless. Think about that variable, friction. In a narrative, you can just say, oh, I'm having a hard time. But the equation demands you to find it. Is it distribution? Is it fear? Is it your health? And then look at feedback quality. Is the feedback you're getting real critique, or is it gift applause from your friends?
So the math just forces you to categorize your excuses.
Precisely. It kills, quote, 1,000 motivational speeches. You lose the ability to shift goalposts. As the author notes, truth hates goalposts with wheels. When you speak in narratives, you can always add a caveat. You can always reinterpret your failure as a learning journey. In the model, you can't. If reps are high, skill is high, but results are zero, then friction must be high. You can't talk your way out of it. You have to look at the variable and say, oh, I have a distribution problem, not the universe hates me.
I appreciate the discipline of that. Truly, I do. It forces a kind of intellectual honesty. But I'm not entirely convinced because it glosses over the garbage in, garbage out problem. Let's look at that friction variable again. You claim defining it removes ambiguity, but deciding what counts as friction is in itself a subjective judgment. It's a mini narrative disguised as math. If I decide that my boss is the friction, I've just encoded my personal grievance into a variable and called it science.
But it's a declared narrative. That's the difference. You've written it down as F4. It's there to be challenged. In a story, the grievance is woven into the tone, the adjectives. It's hidden. In the equation, it's just a term.
Is it always challenged, though? If I'm a charismatic modeler, I can pick convenient variables to make my point. The source says math loses the ability to win by charisma, but I strongly disagree with that. A complex model presented with confidence is the ultimate charisma move today. I mean, look at the 2008 financial crisis. The models were incredibly specific. They were audited, but they were based on assumptions on variables that were fundamentally flawed. When we see an equation, we let our guard down. We assume it's objective truth when it might just be, well, as the text warns, poetry in a lab coat.
That is a fair critique historically, but the source actually addresses this weaponization. It explicitly states that people can pick convenient variables, but the remedy it proposes is do math that reality can audit. And this brings us to a physics concept the text leans on heavily, the principle of least resistance or least action.
Explain how you see that connection, because least action in physics is about the path an object takes through space-time. How does that apply to finding truth in a boardroom?
Well, think of it as an efficiency rule for reality. Reality chooses paths that satisfy constraints with minimal waste. The text argues that math is the cognitive version of this. When we use words, we have too many degrees of freedom. We can hint, we can imply, we can pivot. But math acts as a checksum.
Checksum as in the digital fingerprint that ensures data hasn't been corrupted.
Exactly. The symbols plus, minus, equals, they force you to declare relationships. When you write outcome equals F of inputs constraints, you are forced to answer the question, what would disprove this model? This is the path of least resistance to truth, not because it's easy to do, it's actually very hard, but because it aligns with how nature operates. It forces reality to sign the argument.
I struggle with the use of least resistance here when we're talking about human behavior. The source argues that once you model something, the path becomes cognitively clear, even if it isn't emotionally easy. But that disconnect between the cognitive clarity and the emotional difficulty, that can be fatal.
Fatal? That seems a bit extreme. Why is clarity fatal?
Because human beings are not steam engines. We run on emotion, not just thermodynamics. If the model says stop obsessing over content quality because distribution is the bottleneck, that's cognitively clear. The math says allocate resources to distribution. But the human being is driven by that storytelling addiction. We derive our identity from making good art. If the model ignores that emotional resistance, then it fails to account for the reality of the user. A truth that ignores human nature is just a simulation.
But that's exactly why the model is so necessary. The narrative loves the drama. The narrative loves self-blame and hero worship. The model says you are not successful because your distribution variable is zero. The model liberates you from the emotional drama of the story. It doesn't ignore the mountains. It shows you that you're trying to climb a wall instead of walking through the door. Math doesn't give you comfort. It gives you leverage. That is the distinction.
And that leverage is valuable. I'm not denying that. But let's look at this third point about auditability. You mentioned the goal is to do math that reality can audit, in contrast to narratives where you can move without committing.
Correct. Words let you be slippery. Math forces commitment. You can't sort of divide by zero. You either do or you don't.
I accept the audit standard for closed systems. Engineering, physics, sure. However, the source makes a final distinction that I think is crucial, and it maybe undercuts the idea that math is the only honest language. It says, use stories to explore, use math to decide.
Yes, that's the synthesis.
But think about what that implies. It implies that narrative has a function that you, and maybe the source, to an extent, are undervaluing. You can't model what you can't imagine. Narrative is the engine of hypothesis generation. You need the messy story to generate the raw material for the model in the first place. Math is the ruthless editor, yes, but you can't edit a blank page.
I don't disagree, but narrative has a place. The text says stories generate hypotheses, but the problem is that we stop there. We live in the story. We drown in it. The text argues that narratives are expensive.
Expensive in what sense?
Cognitive energy, time. They're high-friction truth machines. They optimize for persuasion and tribal signaling. My argument is that while narrative might spark the idea, it's wholly unequipped to verify it. If you stay in the narrative, you end up with opinions. You can watch 50 hours of content and still just have opinions. You haven't constrained anything. You've just consumed vibes.
That's a valid critique of our current information ecosystem. We consume content that feels like learning, but is actually just entertainment. We confuse the feeling of insight with the mechanics of progress.
It's more than a critique. It's a diagnosis of a pathology. We are drowning in these expensive narratives. We have threads with 10,000 likes that amount to nothing but shared emotional vibes. The discipline isn't just do math. The discipline is realizing that words are optimized for meaning, while math is optimized for structure. And if we want to understand reality, we have to use the tool optimized for reality. You wouldn't use a paintbrush to tighten a screw. So why do we use stories to determine truth?
Because we are the screw and the painter. We have to be careful not to confuse the map with the territory. The text says, words compress reality for humans. Math compresses reality for reality. Brilliant line. But we are humans. We're the ones who have to live with the truth. If we strip away the meaning and the emotion, we might end up with a truth that is structurally sound, but functionally useless because it can't mobilize anyone to act.
But mobilizing action is exactly what the model does best. As we discussed, once you see the variables, the path becomes obvious. You stop blaming your personality.
Only if you trust the variables. And that brings me right back to the risk of poetry in a lab code. If I present you with some complex financial model that justifies a terrible decision, and I hide the risk in a variable you don't understand, I've used the honest language of math to tell a lie that is much harder to detect than a vague motivational speech. A lie in English sounds like a lie. A lie in calculus, it looks like a proof.
Which is why the text emphasizes that the model must be falsifiable. What would disprove this model? That is a question the equation forces you to answer. A narrative rarely asks what would disprove it. A narrative protects itself. An equation stands naked before the universe. If the inputs don't equal the output, the model dies. And that vulnerability is what makes it honest.
I like that image, the equation standing naked before the universe. It suggests a kind of humility in math that arrogance in speech often lacks. It doesn't hide behind rhetoric.
Precisely. It's humble because it's fragile.
However, I would argue that true intellectual humility requires both. We need the narrative to understand why the variables matter, and we need the math to see how they interact. The source says, truth is what survives constraint. I'd add that truth is also what survives translation, from the math of the universe back to the story of the human experience. If you can't translate the math back into a story that people can care about, your truth will just sit in a textbook, technically correct, but ignored.
That's a compelling way to put it, though I'd argue the translation is where the corruption happens. But let's look at the practical application. The source ends with a very strong working thesis. Use stories to explore, use math to decide. This suggests a sequence.
It does. It suggests a workflow. First, the messy intuition, then the rigorous filter.
And in that workflow, math is the ultimate authority. It's the checksum. The source makes a profound point here. Math is the path of least resistance to the truth because it forces reality to sign the argument. That, for me, is the clincher. You can write a beautiful essay about why a bridge should hold, but the equations force the laws of physics to sign off on the design. If reality refuses to sign, if the math doesn't work, the bridge falls. No amount of storytelling can keep it up.
And I agree. When the stakes are physical, when the system is closed, reality has to sign the argument. But in open systems, in culture, in relationships, reality's signature is harder to read. Sometimes reality signs an argument because the story was so good it created a self-fulfilling prophecy. The vibe-based truth the source mocks actually does change reality sometimes. If everyone believes a founder is a genius, they get the capital, and they might actually build the thing. The narrative became a variable. The vibe became a fact.
But that's just a variable in the equation. Capital equals belief times reach. You can model that. The belief isn't magic. It's an input. You can quantify it.
You can model it, but you're modeling the vibe. You're using math to describe the impact of the story. You haven't escaped the story. You've just put a box around it.
Exactly. And that is why math is the superior language. It can contain the story as a variable, but the story cannot contain the math with the same precision. The model is the container for the truth, even if that truth includes human irrationality. The math is the architecture. The story is just the furniture.
I suppose I can concede that math is the larger container, provided the mathematician has the wisdom to include the irrational variables of human nature. If they exclude them for the sake of elegance, if they try to model a human like a proton, they lose the truth. They end up with a model of a rational actor that simply doesn't exist.
We're approaching the end of our time, and I think we have reached a pretty fascinating synthesis.
I believe we have. To summarize my perspective, while I acknowledge the problem of vibe-based truth, I caution against overcorrecting into a world where we think reality is only equations. We are, as the text reminds us, walking biology. Our coping mechanisms, our stories, they're part of the data set. Math is a powerful filter, absolutely. But we have to be careful not to mistake the map for the territory.
And I still maintain that in a world saturated with cheap, expensive narratives, we are desperate for a different kind of tool. We need boring, useful truth. And the only way to find that is to adopt the checksum of equations. We need to stop negotiating reality and start computing it. We need to strip away the drama to find the constraints.
It seems we both agree on the source's final definition, even if we applied a little differently.
Math is the path of least resistance to the truth because it forces reality to sign the argument.
It's a powerful standard. The disagreement really lies in how much story we get to keep in our pockets before we ask reality to sign that paper.
A fair assessment. The equation remains the judge, but maybe the story is the lawyer presenting the case. The only way to find that is to adopt the checksum of equations. We need to stop negotiating reality and start computing it. We need to strip away the drama to find the constraints.
It seems we both agree on the source's final definition, even if we applied a little differently.
Math is the path of least resistance to the truth because it forces reality to sign the argument.
It's a powerful standard. The disagreement really lies in how much story we get to keep in our pockets before we ask reality to sign that paper.
A fair assessment. The equation remains the judge, but maybe the story is the lawyer presenting the case.
I can live with that analogy.
Thank you for listening to The Debate.
We hope this conversation helps you look at your own truths and ask, are they just vibes or can you model them? Until next time.
Okay. So I really like the last part. First of all, I mean, the math is a path of least resistance or least action. Truth means, it doesn't mean there are not other paths, right? Like there's every other path is available to us. And math is probably the fastest to get there. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think they kind of agreed on that. Let's see.
And start computing it. We need to strip away the drama to find the constraints.
It seems we both agree on the source's final definition, even if we applied a little differently.
Math is the path of least resistance to the truth because it forces reality to sign the argument.
Because it forces reality to sign the argument. All right. Yeah, because then it becomes falsifiable, right? Like, so now you put it into an equation and then you start acting on it and then you show data. So then this is where systems comes in, because then it's not, okay. So what we're trying to do here is not the truth about the physical universe, right? Because then the truth is kind of the same irrespective of where you test it. It could be the same, E equals MC square is the same in the US, in India, everywhere, right? Whereas when it comes to like human interactions or economic related or psychology related, human or collection of humans coming together, then we don't know what the truth is, right? So it could be very subjective also. So which means multiple lenses are important. That's where systems thinking comes in. And then beyond systems thinking is systems modeling. And in systems modeling, then math is one of the perspectives. So that's what now we are trying to show within these puzzles, the perspectives. See, the more lenses you have about a particular topic, the better you're able to understand it, right? Like, granted, there could be some dark spots, but it's better than just having one perspective on this particular topic in contention, right? And then we can go back. So systems, in systems modeling, because multiple lenses are there, that's great. And then you start looking at it from a stock and flow perspective. What's the stock variable? What's the flow variable? But what's important is to understand the feedback loop. That's what the final thing when she says, because it forces reality to sign the agreement, is because I'm putting out, so let's say instead of value, so the equation is VC equals W VCOM. And then I put out that equation and I'm saying, okay, let's see if this equation can create an equitable economic system. And I have to keep feeding data into it, right? Like it could be my 24-hour log or that my community's valuations, all those things keep feeding into that. And then we, the more transparent we are about this whole process, the faster we'll be able to arrive at the final goal, which is, let's say, an equitable economic system. But for that, this feedback is important, and acting or taking in the feedback and learning from that, and then course correcting on the fly is very important. And I think so that's the overall piece, right?
Powerful standard. The disagreement really lies in how much story we get to keep in our pockets before we ask reality to sign that paper.
A fair assessment. The equation remains the judge, but maybe the story is the lawyer presenting the case.
I can live with that analogy.
Thank you for listening to The Debate.
We hope this
story is the lawyer presenting the case. Yeah. See, so it's so beautiful because now this random thought, not random thought, like this thought that has been in my head for quite some time, out of chatted with my custom GPT, I'm assuming, for arriving at math is the path of least resistance to the truth. No, I think I arrived at that, and then I came here and I said, like, can we critique this? And then we looked at it, like we kind of talked to each other, and then that became a structured text, as you will see here. And And from there, now I'm trying to put that into these lenses to show that once the text is out, once the structured text is ready, then you can create all these things. If we just created a podcast where two people are like nicely debating about this one simple text that I gave them, and then I also like the narrative as the hypothesis expansion. Yeah, the new operating system is this, right? Stories sets hypothesis and math kind of contracts it and then helps you with decision, and stories help you with decision, right? You use stories to explore, math to decide. Then force reality to sign the argument. This is beautiful. From fog to clarity, words recruit, be wary of the word. So words recruit emotions is another yeah, very powerful thing. Nature computes, seek the constraint, define variables, translate word into functions, audit the model, ensure it's not. So the reason why I keep saying model, model, model is because you can keep iterating on that, right? That's the whole purpose. So we have, see how much we are able to generate just because the structured text is ready, right? I can go into details of how this structure then fits into the larger narrative that you're able to say. That essentially then gives the longevity for your story. Can you tell a story that's going to be for like the next 40 years, right? And for me, the internet of value is that, right? Like I can keep talking about it for the next 40 years or till however long I'm alive and cognitively functioning. That's a narrative that I can stand behind. And then all this is one small story piece into the larger narrative that we are trying to say, right? Like, so you'll keep adding these narratives, and everything is leading up to, for me, it's really about recruiting deep thinkers for not just, I mean, thinking to action, uh, the time taken from thought to action has compressed so much, right? So we just, while we were listening to that particular thing, we were also able to, create all these things. Look at what's happening here. See, this is that thing. And I think it's trying to give language as in definitions now, right? So language shapes what can be perceived and argued. Hermeneutics studies interpretation and context. Pragmatics test meaning to consequences and action. Social lens tends to value through belonging, trust, norms, and everything combined inside. Language, etymology, hermeneutics, whatnot. So the more you keep adding, it gives the, oh, tooltip is also there. Nice. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So tooltips on that. Okay, yeah. So the first time you click, it comes, I guess. Yeah. All right. So let's see. Okay. All right. I think the scale is the only issue now, but yeah, getting much better. Let's see. Hey, I think this is getting much better and better. One thing is I don't want it to look like, I don't know, it looks like Jupiter, the planet, every orb. It doesn't look like a torchlight or a switch that is being turned on, right? And the light has to focus on the particular object. Uh, right now, it looks like it's going through that particular lens, which I think is technically correct, but I don't want it to look like that. It's like turning on the light on that particular object. And you also look at the scale. The scale is like certain things are like going very like outward, beyond, right? Everything should be around this particular object under question. Um, all right, so wait. We were at looking at this. So all those different formats, right? So if you really think about it, from that text, we are now able to create this debate kind of an audio and we created images, right? Like either one infographic or this particular slide deck. And obviously there is a video that's also generated, right?
All right, let's get into it.
This is like a 7-minute video. This video is still not like, it's like a moving through a slide. It's not very active. But I think
A lot of us.
I mean, another 1 year and you will know you can put stories into this whole thing, and just from a text, like all these different formats of content will be created. And while all this is being created, you're also seeing that we are creating a small puzzle kind of a game that like real time I'm able to create, right? Like with like minimal, I didn't write a single line of code, right? It's all happening on ChatGPT and Codex and rendered through my GitHub, and probably I'll use Netlify to host it, and so anyone can use it, right? So see, the website or the product has become very easy. So the solution or service, what kind of service can this offer? I don't know. If people drop one particular concept into this, let's say money, then you look at money from all these different perspectives, and then it shows lights on top of that. And then if you gate it with saying for the number of perspectives you want and the number of concepts you want to add, for each of those things it's $1 or $2, then it becomes a SaaS product. But we just talked about how everyone will be able to do it eventually. So it's better to go as a service. And the service here could be truth seeking for your business. Then businesses are paying this person who's sitting here and thinking as someone who can think through your business for you from a systems perspective. So then it becomes a service. But then for the service to scale, then I have to make it into a protocolized version. So that happens within growth flow engineering if you're not if you're interested in more of this. But at a larger scale, growth flow engineering itself is just one of the communities within the Internet of Value. And Internet of Value is the larger story that I was talking about, right? Like, can I tell a story for the next 40 years? The reason why I keep saying 40 years is because I saw a video of Milton Friedman. What it's done now. Oh no, just waiting for this. What happened? Yeah. Wow. Just setting this up. Okay. So if I controls read as planets emitting beams, not someone switching on a torch aimed at an object. Okay, great. Here's the best next step. Make control field switches torches, constraint everything into objects neighborhood. Lovely. Okay. So where were we? Oh, why the 40-year journey? One, I'm 39, and I think the Bible talks about from a strength standpoint 80, but I think it was written a long time back. Probably it's much more. But anyway, the point is, I saw Milton Friedman's one of the last lectures where he's sitting and talking about what he terms as free market capitalism. And if you watch that video, oh man, like there's nothing that he had envisioned for a free market capitalistic society is what is being practiced right now. Think about it. Like have someone like Peter Thiel going into Stanford or Harvard, and he's talking about how competition is for losers and we have to optimize for monopoly. From a purely market leading standpoint, that is totally fine because that's how you have to think. But we are looking at economic system as a whole, and for economic system to work, when I say work with like reduced inequality, then you can't have few people optimizing for monopoly. And even if they're doing it on their own, that's great. That would have been still like some form of intellectual or sorry, prowess that this you can give it to them. But the point is, it's all happening through collusion of the market and the state coming together, right? Like no one can reach that level of monopoly without in bed with the state. And who's laying this bet for them? It's the consulting companies, right? I mean, you can question me, but this is the stream of thought I'm having, which is so there's state, there is market, and the market is optimizing for monopoly by leveraging the state, and the state and the market are colluding. So the people on the top are making more and more, and like the haves and the have-nots are like going lesser and lesser and having to deal with life at a different level. So if Milton Friedman had such kind of tools available to him, probably he could have, extended his thought or brought down the thought to such an extent where if anyone goes and talks like that, you have to optimize for monopoly, the community would have stood up and questioned it, and not just stood up from the perspective of some form of valor, but more from a position of strength. That's what we are trying to do. A community as a third economic institution. And when I say community, I'm talking about skill-based communities, not just a wider definition of, oh, people come together with a specific goal. No. If you're part of Internet of Value, you'll understand all these things. And we have this protocol called SAO Commons, SAO, which is Sustainable Autonomous Organization, which is the evolved form of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, which the Web3 or the crypto world is talking about. And we are fundamentally re-looking at value and the individual's value and the collective's value. And we are not changing the state and the market, which is what it is right now, but it's really about invigorating the communities and the individuals. And for that, these kind of explorations could help, right? Like, and it's important because then if I'm not speaking the truth or I'm not able to see the full perspective of a particular topic, then someone else has to come and show this light on the topic that's in question. So let's see, this changed a little bit, but I think it's still, but this is all on already. Why is it getting off? Phenomenology. God damn it. Epistemology defines what evidence is trusted and so if you spend some more time, then obviously you can make this look better. The lenses are still weird looking, and the tool disappears before I can be fully. As soon as I click that, I think tool tip should appear on the mouse over or click. That's the whole should like that a bit more. The main idea was good, and it's right now just eliminates art object. Also the bottom left explanation as reduced a lot. So yeah, so when people say English is the coding language, I mean, I used to be a developer, but not anymore. But the point is, so if someone has to say things like tooltip or mouse hover and not click, those kind of things. And if there is a real game developer, they would have used much better ways to prompt this, right? And there are ways to kind of get that vocabulary right now. Someone would have created a skill of game design skill, and you can use that to create prompts better. But I'm just being lazy right now, or just thinking through this, right? And see the evolution of this as well. But what we have to take away from this whole video or this exploration is there is an object or a problem or something that we want to explore from a truth standpoint, is to look at it from different lenses. And obviously math is the path of least friction to the truth, or path of least action to the truth. And every other lens is as important, because if you just rely on math itself as just one of the lens, then just the lens, then you're missing out on the layers of human interaction. I mean, granted, how much you want to, right? And given the current scenario, I see a lot of people who are like, man, I'll just talk to my AI, I'll get everything done. I don't want to talk to people. People are like dumb, which I don't think is the right way forward as society. The society should come together as people. Technology should be bringing together people and not making them aloof. And social media kind of created that. And now it looks like AI is also going in that direction. And this will not change unless deep thinkers and community builders come together and make people realize that these are technologies and just one of the lenses, right? There is philosophy, there is aesthetics, there is like all these different lenses through which you have to look at the world. And you can't expect robotics and AI to solve inequality, because that's not a technology problem. It's a different problem, right? So if tech can take care of all these things, then I think in the future, skills which bring together people, storytellers, community builders, and personal well-being optimizers, right? Like these are the skills that we would, I think, hold in higher regard. I'm hoping. Okay, so we have the thing. I'm not even reading it. We'll just see one last thing, but whatever comes now, that will be the final version of this truth exploration of a particular topic. And this topic that we have explored, or the core, the term that we have given is value, which is what I will be really going into in the future videos. As you know, internet of value. And internet is kind of self-explanatory in the sense like we are all used to it. You are watching this through the internet, and which is nothing but a bunch of packets moving from one computing device, which is, from my device, it has been uploaded into some server of YouTube or Instagram or wherever you're watching this from. And from there, it's coming into the device through which you're watching this, which could be your laptop, your phone, and whatnot, right? So all these packets that are moving, that make the whole spectrum is the internet, right? And the moment you add time and value or price to it, then it has the whole economy running through the internet. So is there a better way to look at value, and how does value come from? Oh, yeah. That's what the Internet of Value seeks to address, and I hope you'll join us on that journey. Looks like we have a better version now. Oh, wow. So aesthetics is the tooltip. Religious, economic, social. Where is the thing to click for political? Sure. Political, phenomenology, ontology, great, and not bad. Yeah, so at least some form of interaction we are able to bring in to this concept of value, and we can always keep making these things better over a period of time. Okay, so tooltip comes up. Nice. And is it persistent? Yes, it is persistent. Till I move to the next one. Not bad. So you can add more and more lenses to all these things. And hopefully we as humans will become better at becoming humans. So we can rise above the technologies that we are building and leverage the technologies that we are building. I'm not saying become a Mormon or something and don't use the technology. That's where our whole concept of audit, align, and augment is what we just did, I guess. From thinking through to using all the AI tools that are available to us currently, and trying to tell better stories to convince people to come together and not be bogged down by what's happening. And probably we'll create a better or economic system together, which is way more equitable and something that is optimizing for the well-being of an individual through skill-based communities being invigorated. So that's what the Internet of Value is all about. And this is a journey of truth-seeking or truth exploration. And this is me, Moses Sampol, signing off.